I feel like diet culture sets you up to never be good enough.
Did you burn 500 calories on the treadmill today? No? Me either.
I mean, anybody can sit with us. We're just really not about diet culture.
But literally, happiness doesn't come from a low-calorie, high-intensity life. I actually do like carrots.
I do too. They're my favorite.
Welcome to the Fit Fueled Free podcast.
So basically, diets suck.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 65. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Jenna.
Today, we're talking about the 9th principle of intuitive eating, movement, feel the difference. And as we've been doing every episode, just reading the initial blurb, and this is also what you would find if you just checked out the principles on their website. So forget militant exercise, just get active and feel the difference. Shift your focus to how it feels to move your body rather than the calorie burning effects of exercise. If you focus on how you feel from working out, such as energized, it can make the difference between rolling out of bed for a brisk morning walk or hitting the snooze alarm. I want to say snooze button.
Yeah, snooze alarm is a weird description because it's definitely a button that you hit to turn off the alarm.
Yeah, it's funny. Maybe it's because we use our iPhones now. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
But yeah. You want to take us away?
Yeah, okay. So obviously we're talking today about movement and exercise and working out and kind of how to I would say first create and then even like maintain a healthy relationship with moving your body. And so this is going to be something that is going to probably come later on in terms of healing your relationship with food, only because you have to get to a place where you are further removed from the diet culture mentality and abusing and using food as a way to either, deal with emotions constantly or like use it to shrink your body just because you have to change the way that you think about yourself and food before you can even work towards like changing the way that you think about exercise and movement. And obviously we know that movement and exercise is like incredibly beneficial, but you have to like first be medically approved to even move and work out if you're someone who has dealt and gone through like a serious eating disorder or anything of the sort where you were abusing exercise and it did more harm than good for you. But we're talking more along the lines of like once you are at that healthy place and you're trying to incorporate it back into your lifestyle and you're trying to figure out, okay, how can I do this without becoming obsessive, or how can I even enjoy it? Because so many of us who like live our lives in the past by the rules of diet culture, dieting and exercising are kind of like in the same folder. They're grouped together, and it kind of is like this cycle because the dieting and the exercise comes with the diet, because the purpose of the diet is to lose weight, shrink your body, and by doing that you restrict food and you bump up the exercise, neither of which are enjoyable. So it's this cycle of you punishing your body and viewing exercise as something that you're using to like, I guess you could use the word abuse and like change and manipulate and punish yourself. And so when you look at it like that, of course, it's not going to be enjoyable and it's not going to be something fun and that you look forward to.
And I think something too that a lot of people don't know is using exercise as a way to like manipulate your body in any way is actually like a subtype of eating disorders, because you can be an exercise bulimic. Like that's a way of purging, so to speak, calories. And so just to kind of put that into perspective, because I think it can be really hard to even conceptualize how exercise can be a negative thing outside of someone who has the emaciated look of an anorexia diagnosis, which we know is not everyone.
Right.
So just a little side note there. Also, I have to go grab my dog.
No, you're good. Okay. And so one of the reasons why exercise can be something that is not enjoyable if you have paired it for so long with diet culture is a lot of the times, like we said, when you're on a diet, you're restricting food. Typically, you're restricting carb intake because carbs are the one macronutrient that get a bad rap. And so, if you don't have enough energy, working out is not going to be enjoyable because you're feeling like crap the entire time because you don't have that fuel in your body to help you move and to help you exercise. So, which is why if you've only ever paired movement with a diet, of course, you're not going to enjoy it because that entire experience is not enjoyable whatsoever. The cycle of restricting, over exercising, starving yourself, forcing yourself to work out when you don't want to, forcing yourself to work out when you're tired or when you don't have energy, like that's not fun for anyone. But I do think it is important to know that there are so many positive benefits and feelings that can come from moving your body. The experience just has to be recreated. And so I actually shared this on Instagram on my feed the other day. So it's like perfect and funny timing. And so, diet culture has created this idea around exercise that it's a form of punishment, and you have to exercise to make up for what was consumed yesterday, or you have to make up the fact that you didn't work out for X amount of days, or to earn the upcoming meal, which, by the way, your body doesn't even work like that. But when we get caught up with these negative mentalities, we typically forgo what we stand to gain from exercise, and that comes with mental and both health benefits. And so I think just like a simple mental thing that you can do is try and like view exercise and focus on what do you gain from it as opposed to what we lose, because so many times the focus on exercise is like losing weight, losing calories, losing whatever it is, fill in the blank. And like maybe at first it might feel like a positive and like, oh, like I'm gonna like shed these last 10 pounds or whatever, but eventually like in our brains the cognition with like loss isn't typically a positive thing, right? And so if you're constantly focusing on that, at some point or another, exercise is going to feel, there's going to be just like so many negative emotions and like feelings attached with it. And so I think just simply focusing on the benefits and what we gain on exercise can be like a really good first step if you're trying to like figure out how to get back into a movement routine or just like lifestyle that you enjoy. So before I kind of talk about benefits of exercise, is there anything that you wanted to say like within your that you wrote down in your notes?
I think just elaborating on reasons that we avoid working out. And I think you've touched on this already about how it is this negative thing, and we talk about how negative motivators is not something that's going to long-term propel us to want to do something, even though our culture tells us that's how that works. But the shoulding, quote unquote, of like, oh, I should do XYZ, and that can seem like it's something that's helpful, but I think unless we really root that in the self-care department, that it's going to be negative, and it can be really stigmatizing because we make assumptions about body types and what kind of movement we're doing, and our culture just really feeds off of that. I've heard a lot of negative experience from gym class, from people, and just like, I don't think that gym is inherently a negative thing, but I think being tested on how fast you can run a mile, and like, I don't know if they even do this anymore. It was just when I was in school, being graded on those things and feeling like a failure because I wasn't like, I didn't have the ability to reach past my toes. Like, that just seems
Right.
like such a like, oh, well, I'm not good at this, let me not do it. And I've always kind of been non-athletic my whole life, and I would say that that impacts for sure my
Yeah.
desire to want to do certain things, because I've never
Yeah.
been an athlete, or I never was excelling physically in things. So like, I just think the way that gets shaped as being like a pass fail type situation based on well, not pass fail, you're graded
Right.
based on things that you can do,
Mhm.
is that is definitely a barrier. And
Mhm.
I also have heard a lot of stories of traumatic experiences happening to people in gym class, just like things that go on in the locker room and having to change in front of other people, and just
Mhm.
those horrible gym uniforms that we had to wear, at least in our schools,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
that weren't very flattering for anyone. And just it just came with a lot of negativity, and I don't know what that was like for guys, but,
Mhm.
I think the girls definitely had some issues going on, and I'm assuming that's safe to say that across all schools, because I doubt that was just limited to Stephen City,
Yeah.
Virginia. Um, and then just, like, not having energy because we don't need enough,
Mhm.
and falling into that rut of just being tired when we're not really taking care of ourselves in other ways. And I think I don't believe in laziness. I know I've said that before, but I don't think that that's an inherent trait of people. I think that's a sign of being burnt out
Mhm.
and feeling like you're not capable of doing something. Um, I mean, sure, there's times where we just want to lay around, but like I I don't believe people are inherently lazy. And so when we can kind of think about the reasons why we aren't interested in movement because we know it's a health promoting thing, it has all these negatives that come along with it, and depending on your life experience, it could be more so or less, or it could
Yeah.
have been a disordered thing or not.
Mhm.
And so if we can really, like, dig into the why, I think that can help provide clarity. Like, we you don't have to, like, harp on it, but just kind of thinking, like, "What has my relationship been like with it, and what do I want it to be?" Um, Especially if you're someone who doesn't have that, like, competitive, like, athletic nature
Mhm.
in you, and I definitely relate to that side of things a little bit more.
Yeah.
So those are just some of my thoughts there. And again, just reminding everyone that we're not condemning anyone for not being active, and you
Mhm.
guys know that. And it's hard when it's one of those things, like, just like we talk about with nutrition, how, eating a balanced diet is health promoting, but when you're healing your relationship with food, you're not going to have balance necessarily, because you
Yeah.
kind of have to, depending on where you're at, purposefully eat certain things to kind of get over fears of them. And then
Mhm.
we go through the phase of, we've restricted and now I need all of this thing to kind of like teach yourself, like, hey, I can have this, it's not going
Mhm.
anywhere. So, like, there are going to be phases of that. And I think it's the same with exercise,
Absolutely.
depending on your relationship. So, just like extending that compassion, that we always want to do, because this is a really tough thing.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, just making sure I want to reiterate that like we are not or I'm not telling anybody like how to move or how to
Mhm.
exercise. Like if you follow me on Instagram, you clearly know like the kind of movement that I enjoy and like I grew up like I think it's cool, Danielle, that we have kind of different perspectives on it because I grew up like playing soccer my whole life. Like I was an athlete, I played in college and stuff. So it can be so easy for me to be like, here are the benefits. Like it's so great for you. It's so fun just because like that's all I've known. Whereas you can be
Mhm.
like, provide that other perspective to kind of like relate to people who maybe like, well, I had a really traumatizing experience and just saying like, we want to meet you guys no matter where you're at and make sure you don't like feel pressured or judged to like do any type of movement
Mhm.
or forced to exercise in a certain way because there's so many different ways to move your body. There's so many different ways to exercise. And like there's no one better way than the other. So like, you could have two people doing what movement feels good for them. And it could be like one person could be, I don't know, powerlifting, for example, because that experience brings them joy. And the other person could be like, I walk every day and like call my friends and we catch up and like that's how I move. And like both are equally good. And so
Yeah.
I just felt like that was important to say before we get into it because I want to like remind everyone of the benefits of exercise as a whole, but like give you kind of the confidence to know that you can make the decisions for yourself in terms of like what's going to feel good for you and there's no right or wrong answer when it comes to movement.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, if it feels like anyone is trying to convince you, or even yourself you're trying to convince yourself, like, oh, I have to do this thing for my health, but it feels like a negative.
Yeah.
I was talking about like digging into maybe why, but also like it's okay to give yourself that space
Hmm.
until you feel like you're doing it for the right reasons,
Yeah.
which is an unpopular opinion per usual that we're always sharing
Hmm.
on this
Yeah.
podcast. But that's a pretty unpopular opinion. But I really do think as long as we're not harming ourselves, it is okay to take as much time as we need away from something, because
Hmm.
I do believe that like joyful movement can come just like I think a healthy relationship with food can come. It just takes time.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
I really like how Carolyn Dooner talks about it in the Effort Diet, just like how many years she took off of exercising because she just felt like she needed that period of rest. And it wasn't
Hmm.
like she didn't do anything in her life. Like she wasn't literally resting, like laying down for years, but it was just taking a break from going to the gym
Hmm.
or intentionally like
Yeah.
getting her heart rate up because she just felt like that's what she needed. And I think that that was like a cool perspective that's a little bit different.
Hmm. Yeah.
But yes, let's talk about the benefits.
Okay. So a lot of these, some of you probably already know, but there are some other things like from like a cellular level in our bodies that exercise can help with, and like with our literal like bones and muscles. So I'm going to briefly touch on those. Okay. So obviously, exercise can help improve our mood, right? Because it releases endorphins. So when we move, however you choose to move your body, typically you're going to feel better after or while you're doing it. It can relieve stress. It helps with your bone density and longevity. It can also help with pain if it's done correctly and if you're with the right professional who like specializes in like a correctional type of injury prevention and correcting imbalances. Because as we age, we do lose muscle mass and function, which can then lead to disabilities and injury. So if you're just kind of like always in this practice of moving your body to some degree, like that's going to help your literal like nervous system and your bone structure as you continue to age. Exercise can improve brain function because it increases blood flow to the brain. And it can also help with memory because studies have shown that it can actually cause the hippocampus to like grow in size. And that is the part of our brain that is responsible for memory and learning, which I think that's actually like pretty cool.
That
Um,
is cool.
yeah. Obviously, depending on what you do, it's going to improve your strength, endurance, stability, balance, coordination, speed, reaction time, flexibility. Just because, like, when you think about all the different kinds of movements, like there's sports, there's lifting, there's running, there's yoga, there's walking, there's gymnastics. Like, what's the really like slow yoga? Is it Zen? Is that what it's called?
I don't
I
know.
don't know either, but like all of these things like are going to help your body to like move and function better, because like it helps you to learn like your body mechanics and like gives you a little bit more body awareness because if you're moving it like obviously if you are like for example if you're like lifting and you're pressing something overhead you have to be very like conscious and in tune with that experience or else if you're not paying attention you could drop the weight on your head and nobody wants that so it just kind of like gives you awareness for your body, and like kind of gives you feedback as to like what feels good and what doesn't, in terms of like how you move. It helps reduce your cortisol. Studies have shown that it improves sleep quality and can help with like heart health. And it actually, if you're doing strength training, it can help rebuild muscle wear and tear from dieting because we know that like lean muscle mass declines as we get older. And so, Danielle, I don't know if you can like speak to this, but like working at an inpatient place, do you find that like at some point you guys do like recommend some type of strength training for people to like kind of help the bones and the muscles?
After you're like on a maintenance meal plan and have fully weight restored.
Yeah.
Um, an unfortunate thing is oftentimes there's like osteoporosis is happening at a young
Yeah.
age.
Mhm.
And if we continue working out at such an underfed state,
Mhm.
your muscles are going to break down because when your body doesn't have energy, that happens. So that's kind of a little bit of a tangent, but just really, it's just interesting how an exercise can be a negative. It can be very positive, but
Mhm.
also can be like so detrimental to health
Mhm. Yeah.
when you aren't fed.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Did I
Which is
answer
like,
your question?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm. Um, I have a couple other things to add. It can help you like just perform functions of your daily lifestyle better, because it helps you with movement patterns. And we're not one dimensional beings. We are multi-dimensional because we move in different planes of motion. So intentionally incorporating exercise or movement where you're utilizing all of the movements that your body was designed and created to do can really help your body with stability and like balance and strength, because so many of us do spend so much time of our days just like sitting down, and we're not really like doing any type of like rotational movements, or we're not doing it correctly.
Mm.
And then that can cause pain, that can cause imbalances, that can cause injury. And so if we're working on like correcting those things and just like moving our body functionally, that's just going to help us in like everyday life. So yeah, those were like the main benefits. I could probably go on and on about it, but those are some of like the main ones, that I think are important to touch on.
Yeah. And I love like seeing this list because we have a Google Doc that we use when we're recording, and it's just like seeing this list of things, of all of these things being reasons outside of trying to lose weight or manipulate your shape
Yeah.
that exercise is helpful. And I think the average person would be hard pressed to list this many things because we're so like exercise is about
Mm-hmm.
getting toned in my abs and losing
Mm-hmm.
weight. And I don't mean to mock, but like it's annoying because there are these like beautiful things that it can do for your body, that are just so much more positive and like health promoting.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about like risk signs of using exercise inappropriately.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing is when you feel like you can't stop doing it. And I don't mean like, well, sometimes that could mean you literally like are in physical pain. I mean, you continue an
Mm-hmm.
exercise like and you push through an injury, which is not usually a good idea.
Right.
Um, but like Jenna and I have talked about before how it wouldn't be normal to be doing the movement. Like you wake up and it's snowing or like raining. And I'm not saying it's disordered to do that, but it also is like, is it? Like, let's question that because you may be out there running because you're training for something and like you're fine. You don't have like anxiety that builds up if you miss that workout. But like if it is coming from a place of like I can't get through the day if I don't get my workout in, that I would say is misuse of exercise, and a quite disordered thing. And that gets really tricky because I know
Yeah.
that exercise and just movement can be something that we use to relieve anxiety. It's like part of our mental health, but that comes back to like when we talk about emotional eating. If exercise is the only thing that you have in your toolkit that can help you like outside of distress tolerance get through your day, chances are you could be overusing that, and that sets you up for risk of injury, and just that is not health promoting any longer when
Mm-hmm.
you're doing it too much. And that's a hard sell because we often don't think it possible to exercise too much. Like, we always think we don't exercise enough. And that would be another sign, I would say, is if you feel like you can't move for 10 minutes because it's not worth it, quote unquote, that's not appropriate, because that means that, like, you've completely disconnected it from being about coming back to your body and moving your body. And it's about trying to burn calories.
Yeah, I mean, I can attest to that. I used to, when I was like running a ton and definitely over exercising, Landon and I were just talking about this again the other morning because a memory sparked something. And I was like, man, like I used to wake up, I've shared this before. I would wake up at like between 4 and 5 a.m. to go run in the pitch black, like 4 to 5 miles before going to work. And I would do it without fail, like whether it was pouring down rain or not. And the other morning I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe I used to wake up at like 4:30. And Lana was like, yeah, you would go, like you would be going outside and it would be pouring down rain. And I would be like, what are you doing? Like it's dark out and it's raining. Like, why do you need to run? And so that was just kind of like, once it got to that point where I was like, that was a habit for me. And I was like continuing to up my mileage, which again, there's nothing wrong if you're doing it in like a healthy and non-obsessive way. But like, to me, a run didn't count unless it was at least 7 miles.
Yeah.
That's like, and I would do that like 4 to 6 days a week. And that's absurd. Like people who are even training for marathons, which my husband is doing right now, he's not even running 7 miles every single day. He runs like short runs during the week and then a long one, like a long run during the weekend. So just sharing that experience in case anyone is like, if you're having to question whether or not you're at a place where your relationship with exercise is kind of rocky or maybe like disordered, like it might be leaning more towards the side of like you might need to reassess, because if you even have to question that, then there might be like too much of a stronghold that it's having on you.
And not allowing like intentional rest days.
Right.
So like I was saying, like you feel like if something happens and gets in the way and you like can't hang with that, but like actually like purposefully taking days off from, I'm not saying you have to lay on the couch all day. I feel like I have to say that because that's like the image that comes up a lot for people, but like you need to plan rest for your body.
100%.
So if you're feeling like exhausted, I mean, one, that could be from lack of sleep or not eating enough, but also like over exercising can really wear your body down, which is the opposite of what we want to be doing. Although some people do want to use that because they want to get fully exhausted in order to feel like they can relax. And again, that's disordered. So yeah, just kind of like pointing some of those things out. I think it's good to try and be honest with yourself about how you're using it if you do have a history of an eating disorder, disordered eating, and just making a point to have someone in your life that can like reflect that back to you if you're struggling to figure that out for yourself. Are there any other ones that come to your mind? Okay.
Do you want to talk about action steps?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can start.
Okay. So I kind of touched on this at the beginning, but I think like first and foremost, you're going to have to really shift the focus from it being like solely on weight loss, because sure, that might motivate someone for like a very short period of time, but like long term, that's going to like, that's not going to provide any motivation for you. You need to start focusing on like positive and sustainable facts, such as the ones we just listed a little bit ago about what exercise and movement does for you in order to like create and find a healthy way to implement it back into your lifestyle. And just really working on like letting go of it feeling like a chore and the punishing mentality or something that like you have to do. And that might simply come from you changing the kind of working out that you're doing. Because if you're waking up and you're feeling like you either have to or should do something, and it brings dread and it brings like discomfort and it brings like discouragement, even like it's probably really not a form of exercise that is going to give any type of like beneficial aspects to your life. And so like just kind of like reassessing from the very beginning, like how do you feel? And how does it make you feel? I think is going to be something that's going to be like really important for you in terms of trying to like figure out what kind of movement you even enjoy, and what's going to feel good for you.
And when talking about how it makes you feel, I think that this can be an opportunity to really like do that full body assessment, because we talk about with
Mhm,
like satisfaction of food, like you can feel it in different parts of your body. Like
mhm,
it's not just about your tongue or your stomach.
mhm,
And I think with movement too, like an example being like dancing is like my favorite like form of movement, always, always,
mhm,
always. Whether it's Zumba or just going out dancing around my kitchen, and it like makes me feel like my heart feels happy. Like
mhm.
it brings joy to my full self.
Yeah,
Um, and it's energy like it can burn sometimes, like if you're dropping it low or something, but like
yeah,
or if you're
yeah,
jumping around, but like it feels energizing.
yeah.
And I think just like coming back to like what your body is feeling, because I find that if you're enjoying your movement, even if you are like gonna wake up sore the next day or the day after that
Mhm,
because you're like using your muscles in that kind of way,
mhm,
that it doesn't hurt like when you're doing something that you don't want to be doing. And I
mhm.
know there's a really easy counter argument to that. Like people talk about how it's good to like do things that are hard, blah blah blah. Like sure, that's fine. And also like it's fine to still like move in ways that make you happy, because I think we all don't have a ton of free time in our day today. And so, like, I want the way that I move my body to also bring me joy, not to like be another to do list that is
Yeah,
miserable. So,
yeah. Yeah, and I think in terms of like also focusing on how you feel, like you can kind of like assess how you're feeling before movement. So like whether you're stressed or you're tired, or even like happy, like assess that, acknowledge it, and then if you do choose to work out or just move your body in whatever way feels joyful or good for you, assess how you then feel afterwards. Like, has your stress gone down? Do you actually have more energy? Like, do you have a clearer headspace? Like, are you able to now go back to work and make that decision that felt so overwhelming for you, like before you worked out? Do you feel more accomplished, empowered, or even like confident? These are all going to be things that are going to kind of like help you to create that healthier relationship with movement, because you're going to focus on like how it made you feel positively like after the fact. And so obviously, like Danielle said, we're not talking about like pushing yourself to work out like when you are burned out or utterly exhausted, because that's gonna be counterintuitive and like not productive for you whatsoever. So I'm not telling you to like assess like, oh, I'm so exhausted, and then like force yourself to work out and then end up feeling like crap after. So you're gonna have to like kind of tune in and like see where you're at with that. But more times, what were you gonna say?
oh, just like that requires self-compassion and practice,
Yeah,
just like we talk
absolutely.
about like relearning hunger and fullness cues if you haven't paid attention to them or if you've been disconnected from
Mhm.
them. I think that's the same thing. Like you may find times where you start a workout and you aren't feeling super hot, and it's just like you can assess. I think the mailman's out there.
Oh,
He's going berserk.
okay.
You can assess, oh, maybe I shouldn't continue this workout because
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm gonna pass out in 5 minutes because I'm exhausted or
Mhm.
not. Like, and you
Yeah.
might not know that before going into something, which is another reason why we need to like back off of the time constraint thing with a workout, because like
Yes.
you don't have to continue just because you started if you're not
Mhm.
feeling great, because there's like sure it's fine to push yourself, but only like at a
Mhm.
certain point
Mhm.
or like in a certain way, I would say.
Mhm.
But I'm not an elite athlete. That's just my 2 cents on
Yeah.
having a
No.
healthy relationship with exercise.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. Um, this one can be hard, especially if you're someone who has like been so obsessive with counting calories or counting even like your fitness watch, in terms of like how much did you burn or whatever. But letting go of numbers is actually going to be something that can be incredibly freeing when it comes to movement. So like letting go of numbers in terms of calories burned, letting go of like the weight and the inches lost, letting go of how many times you did or didn't work out within a week, like what you just said, how long you worked out, letting go of all of those things can be a super helpful gateway to just shift that focus off of like letting something as silly as a number drive and direct your behavior, because at the end of the day, like all of these things, like then it really doesn't matter. Like it's not gonna, you could wear your watch or you could take it off and do the exact same workout, and like you're gonna feel the same way afterwards. Just mentally you may not, if you're obsessing over how many calories you burned, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that can be a really hard thing to do. But even like something that I started doing when I was getting back into like running again after I stopped for a long period of time is like I had to do it in increments, because like I was so attached to like checking and looking at my watch and like seeing, oh, how many miles did I run, or how fast, or even like how fast did I do it, or like how many calories did I burn. Is we've also talked about this in terms of nutrition. Like if you're so obsessed with like counting calories or macros, or like doing the like what is it, My Fitness Pal
Yeah.
app, like if you're doing that every day, like it's going to be hard to do something like go off of it cold turkey. So like with the like counting macros, if that's something you want to break away from, like every other day, like count, and then slowly like, okay, go 2 days without counting, and then like 3 days without counting. Like that is something that I've heard, and that's something that I was doing, like I did for
Mm-hmm.
myself too, when I was like obsessive about like, okay, how much am I eating kind of deal. That is something that I started doing with my watch. Like, okay, like I would go for runs without it. And like I would start with just like every other day, and then like would slowly like kind of break away until if I forgot to put it on, I was like, oh, like that's not really a big deal, because so many people are like, oh my gosh, I didn't start my watch, like the workout doesn't count. And I'm like, I get you wanting to like see those numbers, because some people are so driven by like visually
Yeah.
seeing what they've accomplished, and I get it. Like I'm a list person, like I like to visually check things off, but like the workout still counts, the movement still counts, like regardless of whether or not like you tracked it.
Yeah. And like, what else can we invest our energy in that is of value to us other than worrying about that? I had to
Right.
kind of check myself a little bit when I got my Apple Watch, just because it would like the notifications that were going off, and I truly could care less about calories burned. I have not thought about that in a while, which I'm thankful for doing that work. But like seeing my steps, and sometimes I'll be like,
Mhm.
oh, like if I go for a walk and I don't have my watch on, it like makes me think like, oh, like I don't have this, because I want to
Mhm.
see that evidence of like
Mhm.
my movement. And it was just kind of challenging myself, like, okay, like this is a curiosity, like why are
Mhm.
you wanting to know these numbers? Um, and I think as long as we can come back to it being like a genuine intention of self-care, and I feel for like where I'm coming from is I was not super active last year, like during COVID,
Mhm.
and I just felt I don't feel as well when I don't at least like go for walks. Like that's an
Mhm.
important movement for me. And so seeing my steps increase, it felt kind of like, oh, like I'm I'm taking care of myself a little bit better, because walking is important to me, because it's just nice to get fresh air.
Mhm.
And I had to like check myself, like, is this like, where are we going with this? And I again, like, I don't feel like I was slipping back into disorder behavior or anything. It was just like um one of those things that it could very much be, and having to check yourself on it. And I just love sharing those things, like, as part of my journey as a human living in diet culture, of just, like, ways that can be slippery slopes, and you just
Mhm.
have to, like, check yourself
Mhm.
and make sure it's, like, a positive, because if I felt, like, genuinely that it was causing something negative to go on with me, like,
Mhm.
I would turn, like, all of that stuff off so I couldn't
Yeah.
see it. I don't know how you do
Yeah.
that, but, like, yeah, so
Mhm.
just trying to be honest with yourself,
Yeah.
about like why you care about certain things. Because I think these devices are cool, but they can also be just so problematic.
Mhm. I know. Um, we've been referring to exercise as movement. We've been using that like simultaneously. And so I think also something that can help is like just simply change the word exercise to movement for the time being, or permanently, whatever you need to do, because like you don't have to go to the gym or like go for a run or like sweat a ton in order to like have a quote unquote successful like workout or like time of movement. It's really about finding a realistic way to provide regular joyful movement in your life. And so to also kind of like attack the like myth of like, oh, I didn't work out hard enough if I didn't sweat enough, like that mentality is crap. Like I get it. I used to be one of those people who I was like, I have to sweat and like be profusely sweating in order for me to like count it in my head as like a workout. But there's like so many, again, different forms of workouts that have so many different benefits on our body. And like just because your heart rate doesn't get super high one day and you don't sweat as much, like that doesn't discount the movement that you chose to do. So just want to reiterate that fact, because it can be really hard, especially like if you are an athlete. And like playing soccer my whole life, yeah, I was used to like sweating a ton, and I would equate like, oh, I sweated a lot today in the game, that means I played a lot, that means I like worked out a lot. But that doesn't equate to like a good enough form of movement, because there is no good enough. Like there's no scale that tells you what you like have to do in order for it to count.
Yeah. And I also like I just want to like put this thought out there, because I can't speak like from experience on this, but different like having different hair types with different skin colors, I know that sometimes I've heard feedback of like, I don't want to get very sweaty because then it impacts my hair from Black women. And that is something too, like thinking like overarching, like if we think we have to get sweaty for that, but like here's this thing going on with someone that they're gonna have to deal with that we don't have to deal with because of that. Like it really like just a random note of like coming back to how diet culture and racism come together. Just like something to consider, because there's like multiple layers of why things like that can be problematic. And like, yeah. So I'm not going to keep going off on a tangent on that. It just popped in my mind. I wanted to share that side note.
And then the only other like two little action steps I have is, I've kind of said this already, but like focus on the pleasure that you derive from exercise by choosing activities you enjoy. Like don't force yourself to work out in a way that you hate just because you see someone else doing it, or just because your best friend is doing it, or just because like the hottest fitness influencer on social media is doing it. Like don't feel like obligated or like you have to do it just because like a mass majority of people are. Like you are yourself, you're an individual, and like you have the power and ability to like make the decision to move however you want to do it. And you don't have to, go along with the grain just because you feel like that's what everyone else is doing, if that's not something that you enjoy.
That's what I like super love about you as an influencer and as a fitness professional and personal trainer, like with your app and just how you've always talked about the like your soulful days, because I feel like there's so many programs out there where people are like, do what I do. And that's because, they have some kind of physique result and they want everyone to have that because we think that's what we have to have kind of thing. And we've talked about that, but like that shows your true intentions with people, and like what you want to do with your career, and as someone that can inspire people to help them move more. And I'm talking you up because I think you're awesome and you're my friend, but also like that is something to like look for in a professional, is like, do they have your best interest, or like they're trying to make me do every single thing that they're doing to like check something off so that they can be like, look at all these people that do my workouts kind of thing in that way. And I'm sure it comes from good intentions, but I feel like it's a lot less like genuine and a lot less helpful to like individuals that you don't know doing that. So find people like Jenna is the moral of the story here.
or not. Just do what feels good for you. Like, just honor your body. I said that today. I was like, I don't care if you're doing my workouts or someone else's, but like XYZ, the point that I was trying to prove. My last one is to prioritize gentle movement and recovery, such as like stretching, because like stretching is going to help prevent injuries and improve muscle performance. And it also like keeps your tendons flexible, which is crucial as we age. And so in our culture of like go, 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 like do, we really forget to focus on like the recovery aspects of movement, which is things like stretching and like rest days and taking care of our bodies. Like we're almost like shamed if we do that, or like even take like a period, like a time frame of rest. And it's just really unfortunate because like our bodies were designed for rest. Like they need rest. And it's so like counterproductive and counterintuitive to not honor our bodies like through rest and gentle movement. So I would encourage you to like start incorporating days, plural, where you are honoring your body through like slower movement and like taking care of it in whatever way that would look like for you.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to add?
I don't.
Cool.
Well, thank you guys so much for listening. We have one more episode in our mini series on intuitive eating. If you want to see what we're up to, you can follow us on Instagram. My personal page is Dietitian Dani Cast. Jenna's is Jenna Fit. And we have our joint Instagram account for this podcast at Fit Fueled Free. I haven't talked about this in a while, but we are still posting our recordings onto YouTube if you prefer to watch and listen rather than just listen. We always appreciate ratings, reviews, subscriptions. We want to hear from you, and to our email, fitfueledfree@gmail.com, or our DMs. But thank you for listening, and we can't wait to talk to you guys next week.
All right. Bye, guys.